Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another devlog for Dauphin. In this video we're going to have a little bit of fun and make a slight tweak to the formula that I usually use for these videos. Today is Sunday, October 11th, and tomorrow is Columbus Day, which I happen to have off from work. Now, many of you guys may know that I am a full-time software engineer, and that means that everything you see me do on this channel happens in the morning before work, in the evening after work, or at some point on the weekend. Tomorrow I'm going to try and shake things up. Instead of spending the last day of my 3-day weekend probably sleeping too late, playing too many video games, and just generally being less productive than I want to be, I'm going to treat it like a normal 8-hour workday, but instead of being a software engineer, I'll be a full-time indie game developer. Now, some of you might be thinking this sounds pretty silly. I have the day off tomorrow, and I'm going to spend it working on my personal project, which I probably should have been doing anyway, and you're definitely not wrong. The difference that I'm going to try to achieve tomorrow is that I'm going to try to truly adopt the mindset that the project I'm working on is my livelihood as a full-time hypothetical indie game developer. I want to somehow treat my work tomorrow with the same kind of rigor that I normally do for my full-time job, and there's definitely a disconnect right now between my personal projects and my professional work in that sense. In any case, I think it'll make for a fun devlog, and I hope to make a ton of progress tomorrow. At the very least, you'll be able to see how I go about my day as a software engineer working from home during all this crazy pandemic stuff. Alright, I think that's enough introduction for now. I'm going to spend the rest of my Sunday evening relaxing and getting ready for a hard day's work tomorrow. We'll catch up bright and early. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 6:05 a.m. on Monday morning. My alarm just went off a few minutes ago at 6 o'clock. Hopped out of bed, brushed my teeth, and here we are. I've got a pretty simple morning routine these days. I just head out to the kitchen, get some coffee brewing, and while that's brewing, I will head to the living room and do a couple rounds of Wim Hof Breathing. And if you have no idea what that is, I'll leave a link in the description. It's basically just some deep breathing and mindfulness to try and jumpstart my body and my brain for the day. So I'm gonna go do that, and we'll catch back up in a few minutes. Alright, it's going on 6:30 a.m. now, did my breathing, got my coffee, and I'm back at my desk. I've got about an hour before my 7:30 a.m. workout, which is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing for me right now. I would normally spend this hour on Monday morning working on Dauphin, either on camera for a devlog or off camera just trying to make some extra progress and be a little bit less distracted. However, since I'm going to be working on Dauphin for 8 hours later today, I'm not going to get started quite yet this morning. Instead, I'm going to take this hour and continue progress on a side project, which is actually relearning C++. It's been a long time since I connected with a more systems level language, and ultimately one day I'd like to have the knowledge to contribute to the Godot engine. So I'm just going to sip some coffee and continue on with a really great YouTube tutorial series I've been following, and in a little bit I'll get ready for my workout. Alright guys, we're back in the office right at 8:30 after my workout and shower, and this is really when my workday begins. Between 8:30 and 9, I usually try and respond to emails and plan out my tasks for the day, so that when 9 o'clock rolls around, I'm ready to hit the ground running. So I'm going to do just that. Instead of responding to work emails, I'm going to respond to some messages from you guys that I need to get caught up on, then I'm going to update Trello for the day's tasks, and we'll catch up once I got that figured out. Alright guys, it is now 9 o'clock and I'm happy to report that I have both an empty inbox and a plan for the day. Here of course we are looking at Dauphin chilling on the beach, and if I press the I key we will see what we're going to be working on today, and this is the inventory system that I actually designed quite a few videos ago. This inventory system I think was a good first attempt, but it has a lot of defects that have been on the back of my mind recently. First off, just visually, you kind of have no idea what you're looking at, and there are all sorts of pixels of different sizes all over the screen here, which just doesn't look very nice. Apart from the player having no idea what they're looking at here, a lot of the functionality here is also broken. Just picking up items and dragging them between slots involves way too much manual math that I think the engine can actually take care of for me, and dropping items out of the inventory doesn't work very well. It needs a lot of cleanup, and that's what I want to focus on today because I think I can probably overhaul this system in about 8 hours of concentration and hard work. Last time I implemented this functionality, I just kind of winged it because I thought I could figure it out, and that is what resulted in a lot of the problems that we just talked about. This time, as I have many times in the past, I'm going to let Ben from Heartbeast come to the rescue again. He just released a brand new series, 2 parts so far I think, on how to create a resource-based inventory system in Godot. That's the first thing I'm going to do this morning, dive into those tutorials and figure out what I can learn about designing this system correctly. Hey guys, it's going on 11:30 now. I'm back with just a quick update. I have worked my way through parts 1 and 2 of Heartbeast's inventory system tutorials, and I've implemented a bunch of new code from those into Dauphin. I'm not going to dive too much into the code here because Ben does a really great job explaining it in his videos, but I did want to show you the finished product of that tutorial series. Here we have a very simple inventory with 9 slots. Right off the bat, you might notice that we just have little artwork for placeholders here rather than big squares for the items to fit into, and I think that's a much cleaner look for the UI. Apart from that, we of course have my sand crab shell fragments here, and we can click on those and drag and drop them into different inventory slots. The big difference here is that I'm using functions built into Godot's control nodes to do this, rather than implementing dragging and dropping myself, which is what I did before and why it turned out kind of like a dumpster fire. Apart from just dragging and dropping to new slots, we can combine items of the same type, so basically stack items in the inventory. This all works really well, and we also have some kind of error handling functionality built in. If we try to drag something way outside the inventory or off the screen, we won't actually lose that item. So this is just a super strong foundation for a simple inventory system. Before I take a quick break for lunch here, I want to check in with my Trello board and just see how I'm pacing myself so far for the day. If we look at my inventory overhaul milestone, you'll see that things are looking pretty good. We're about halfway through. The first 3 tasks here, working through Heartbeast tutorials and basically implementing just the brain of the basic inventory system, drag and drop and item stacking. Those are all done, which is great. Now, the tasks that I have for after lunch are going to be a little bit more tricky. It's going to be all about taking what we created this morning, instead of having it just kind of be a standalone concept, actually implementing that into Dauphin and allowing the player character to interact with the inventory. But for now, time for a break. I think a smoothie sounds pretty good for lunch, so I'm going to go whip one of those up and then try to do something to kind of disconnect my brain from all this development stuff so that I can come back fresh after lunch.
Oh no.
Alright guys, back from lunch around 12:30, feeling nice and refreshed and ready to take the inventory system we worked on this morning and make it feel like a more cohesive part of Dauphin. In order to make that happen, I think I'm going to need to put some more effort into the artwork for the player interface. Now previously, the player interface was really just the inventory. If we press I, you can see our previous implementation of the inventory system. Ultimately, I'm going to want to show way more information than just the inventory to the player, something like a collection log, a map of the island you're on, and maybe even a notebook where the player can take notes about new species they've found in order to kind of revisit that same island if they want to learn more about that species. Right now I have really no structure set up to show different tabs with information like that, so I think I'm going to try to design some artwork to support that concept. Alright, it's going on 2 p.m. Wanted to check in quickly and give you a little bit of an update. Almost an hour and a half ago, I sat down in front of Sprite thinking, okay, let me create a quick piece of artwork for my new player interface that can be home to my new inventory system. Well, I realize now that I seriously underestimated the amount of time this would take because I really had no idea in my head of what this new interface should look like. So an hour and a half later, after discarding tons of designs, I'm left with this, which is still something that I'm not a pretty big fan of right now. Just so you guys understand what you're looking at, this will be the player interface where I'll ultimately have more tabs on the top for things like your notebook, your map, your collection journal, all sorts of stuff like that. But this is going to be the interface tab here, at least for now. We'll show the player here in the left panel, and then up here we'll have selections for your buoyancy compensator vest, your collection bag, and your specimen jar. So that's how you'll be able to flip through the various types of items that you can carry on your person at any given time. I really wish I hadn't spent so much time here, and I'm not a big fan of the final product, but I'm going to cut my losses here, jump back into the code, and see if I can incorporate what we did this morning into this new design. Welcome back to 3:40 in the afternoon. I have no idea where today's gone. It has just flown by. But the good news is, even though we're on the home stretch, I've made some really good progress. Here we are on the beach, and as you can see, we've made some progress re-implementing our player interface panel. Now, as I mentioned before, this is just the inventory for now, but in the future, we'll have other tabs here on top for things like your map and your journal, and any other functionality that I decide to add. And of course, apart from just being able to render this inventory, we can actually populate it with some loot. So I just cleansed corruption from this crab, and he dropped a shell fragment. So if I go over here and get close to it, it'll zoom towards the player and appear above my head to show that I picked it up. And if I show my inventory again, we'll see that it has occupied the first slot in the inventory. Because this item is tagged as a stackable item, it'll also have a number next to it to let you know that you have one of these items in the stack in your inventory. Now let's say I move this somewhere else in the inventory and I go happen to collect one more of these stackable sand crab shell fragments. Instead of just putting that in the first spot and creating two stacks, it's smart enough to say, hey, you already have a stack in your inventory, so I'll add it to that existing stack. So this should just make inventory management a little bit nicer. Given that it's almost 4 o'clock, I think this is a good opportunity to kind of take a step back, look at Trello, and figure out how I want to spend the last hour of my day. Looking at the Trello board, we actually did pretty well today. We knocked out 4 of 6 tasks, even though I got really hung up on the artwork, and I didn't really end up with a finished product that I liked there. And our final 2 tasks are actually really big. I don't think I was going to have much of a hope of finishing those today anyway. With the last hour, I'm thinking maybe I can revisit this artwork, try to make it look a little bit better on the screen, add some more colors, and overall just improve the presentation of that inventory system that we hooked up this afternoon. Alright gang, 5 o'clock is upon us, and I think I'm ready for the final update of the day. Over the past hour, I really tried to think hard about exactly how my inventory system should work, and as a result, I made a few tweaks to the artwork I worked on earlier this afternoon. If I go ahead and press tab and pull that up, you'll see a few new things probably worth calling out here. The first is on the left where we're showing the player. This is a much bigger area now, mostly to accommodate these various slots where you'll be equipping gear for the player. I know this doesn't look super clear right now in terms of what you'll be equipping, but as a rough idea, the bottom slots here are where you will equip your buoyancy compensator vest, your collection bag, and your specimen jars. To the left and right of the player are where you will have a tool and a weapon, and on top is where you will equip a hat. You have to have a hat slot, that much I know for sure. Now over here on the left, you will be browsing whichever of the 3 inventory types you have selected. So say you open the screen and you want to browse what you have in your collection bag, you can click on your collection bag, and my plan is to change this interface so that you can see what type of crafting elements you've collected. Of course, I didn't have time to implement any of that today, but I'm kind of happy with having that kind of fleshed out in my head. Well, we did it. We made it to 5 o'clock, and it shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but I had a blast today. It just completely flew by. I mean, I love writing code all day for my job anyway, but being able to spend 8 hours working on a project that I'm as passionate about as Dauphin, really can't beat it. We made a respectable amount of progress today too, I think. I basically started out this morning by blowing away all my old code and artwork for the inventory system and starting from scratch with all of that. Definitely a big shout out to Ben from Heartbeast for making that great tutorial series to get me jump started. And over the course of the day, I'm just super happy with the finished product, and I think it's a huge improvement over my first iteration on the inventory system. As always, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's devlog. I had an absolute blast today, and I'll definitely be looking for opportunities to do stuff like this again in the future. In the meantime, keep your eyes peeled for more progress updates, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.